Welcome back to our channel, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for choosing our show today. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to begin by asking you a question. Do you think it was the wisest idea for the Nepalese Gen Zs to storm the streets to sanitize their country, to ensure that they chased the politicians who are living large as the gap between the rich and the poor widened, to ensure that they forced their prime minister to resign? They touched several residential places that belonged to these corrupt politicians. They even touched their parliament. And they were doing this in what they believed was the course to sanitize and bring order and sanity to their nation and to their government. Do you think it was a wise idea? I'm asking this because there are divided opinions. If you look at those who are in government, they are scaring youths and they're saying that it was a wrong move to go to the streets, that sometimes it is good to talk when you realize things are not going well. But those who are in the opposition are saying that governments don't listen to their people, and so the only way to deal with them is to storm the streets. Begging the question, what really led the Gen Zs to go to the streets? Now, government-sponsored bloggers are trying to discourage the Kenyan youths not to try, not even imagine that going back to the streets is the way to go. And I want us to go straight to a commentary or a parody account of Dennis Itumbi, and someone who I believe has got an agenda to drag home is writing this. He's saying that the people in Nepal will soon face harsh realities. Sudan never healed. Sri Lanka drowned in crisis. Joblessness multiplies. Poverty worsens. Destruction never solves, but it extinguishes the last embers of hope and traps nations into endless suffering. Now, this is a commentary that is being given after the protest in Nepal. And the views of this person here is that it was never a good idea because it will leave that country in turmoil. Kindly subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell. This allows YouTube to notify you whenever we release a video like this. Please like and share our videos. Ladies and gentlemen, you'll realize that the thoughts that are being shared by the person who has written this simply want to paint a picture that going to the street is not the best idea because it leaves nations in poverty and unresolved cases. But I want to ask this question: whose mistake or whose error is it? Let's take an example in our country when Gen Zs went to the streets. Did they just wake up one day and decide to go to the streets? And the answer is no. When you see people storm the streets, it's not a one-day affair. This is an accrued anger. People have been vexed, and when they try to talk to the government, when they try to engage the government, there are government officials who show them the middle finger. It is like, you know nothing. You are either mad or stupid. I'm Mr. Know-it-all. We've got government officials who showcase their wealth, yet corruption is entrenched in the country. The gap, as I said, between the rich and the poor widens. The poor gets poorer by the day. The rich continues to amass wealth through corrupt deals. So youths realize that this is untenable. Joblessness, there is no money when you try to open businesses. Investors are running away because when the conditions are so harsh, if the business environment does not favor investors, they run away. And youth listen and look at this and they say enough is enough. So whose error is it? I have listened to governments preaching things like we need peace, We only have one country. We should not destroy our country. This only happens when they realize that they have destroyed a nation and there's an uprising in the nation. Take, for example, after rigged elections and people are maybe, waiting for results, or they have begun protest on the streets, you'll realize that there are preachers who will come, there are sponsored analysts and commentators who will go to, national TVs and radios, and what they preach is, we need peace, we have one country, if the country burns, we all burn. They try to preach peace. They only understand that we have one country when they have messed up the nation through corrupt deals. By the time they are, amassing this wealth, they don't realize that we have one nation. When they don't respect human rights, they don't realize we have one nation. For them, they feel they have a right to mess our country. And when people rise up to sanitize a country, to bring order to the country, to speak against corruption, then they say, someone wants to get involved in this, and they want to destroy our country. And I feel this is very bad. Compare how our Gen Zs went to the streets and how the Nepalese Gen Zs went to the streets. There were several things that happened, but it was triggered by the Finance Bill 2024. They were saying, life has become unbearable, yet you still vote to pass the Finance Bill 2024. And so, it was a trigger. The same way, Gen Zs in Nepal went to the street because of corruption. Politicians live large in very posh estates, yet the poverty-stricken wananchi keep on languishing in pain. They feel the pangs of poverty. And I dare say that if you really feel that we have one country and you have been given a chance to lead our nation, please do it knowing very well that we only have one country. Don't mess the country. Then when you realize that the nation is now rising up to speak, then you start preaching for us, we have one nation. Number two, do whatever you're doing knowing very well that there are consequences. Because, Kenyans and nations all over the world will not accept it anymore. That you continue looting, government coffers, public taxpayers, and when you are asked, you start telling people that the government or the nation will be destroyed. I remember when Ruto had been cornered by Gen Zs and Raila rushed to help William Ruto. When people were asking Raila, why did you do this, yet you've been criticizing William Ruto that he's unfit to hold office? They told us that had I abandoned William Ruto at the hour of need, then the nation would have gone to the dogs, that the military had threatened, to take over the country, that some people wanted to topple, Ruto's government. It is the same old story that they're now telling us that the country would have been messed up. But it was Raila himself who told us that Ruto and the UDA government was corrupt, was killing people on the streets. He himself was against the Finance Bill 2024. When people went to the street to protest, then he started telling us that, you should not do this. If you do it, then the country will burn. We only have one country, and such kind of things. And this is the language of fear, language of dictators, language of looters. They gang up, they loot the country, but when you ask questions, when you start regrouping, they tell you you want to destroy our nation. What do you think was the agenda of the person who wrote this tweet? Because I dare tell you that they have realized that Kenya is at the brink. We still have unfinished agenda. The youths are never satisfied, because what William Ruto did was never to talk to them, not even talking because they said we don't want to talk. Just follow the constitution, stop corruption. We've always listened to the Auditor General and the Controller of Budgets report. They are very, very pathetic, because they portray a very, very corrupt government. And this is the fear of the government adherents, because they understand that Gen Zs went to the street and told Ruto, stop wastage and corruption. This is unresolved. William Ruto has doubled it after getting the support of Raila Amolo Odinga. And there is fear that there's fear that what happened in Nepal can trigger another wave of protest in Kenya, in Africa as a whole, because if you listen to what is happening, the reports in all the other nations, not only in Africa, but many governments, we are tolerating corruption and people are getting sick and tired. So this tweet is supposed to sell fear. But as they sell fear, they are also scared that should this happen, for example, maybe if it happens for the second time, it will be too little too late, even for the government. And this is the reason why I always say that if God bestows upon you the privilege to lead a nation, to be in charge of taxpayers' money, use it prudently, because perhaps it is just by grace that Kenya is stable today. What happened in June 2024 scared people, and even Ruto himself was scared. He was humbled. How I wish that Ruto would look back on the day he stood alone, I think that was Statehouse, when he was reading the austerity measures and saying that he had listened to the youth and said that he was going to do the right thing. I wish he would look back to that moment, because he knows exactly what to do. So my point is, let governments not mess up the nation, then they start scaring people about what will happen. They continue telling us that if you go for revolution, then the country will remain in turmoil. But the question that one would ask them is this: during the first liberation in the whole of Africa, when we were still under the colonial rule, had people sat down there and people argue that if we fight these colonial masters, the country will be left in ruin, we will be killed. If anything, they had just crude weapons. They were fighting against sophisticated weapons. There were people who betrayed them through collaboration. Had they sat down and give up, what would have happened? To date, if the whole of Africa would have sat down in fear, I can assure you we would still be colonized today. Raila himself says that they had to fight the one-party state when it was very unpopular. People were being killed, detention without trial, a very cruel regime. But they had to go out there, attend illegal meetings, illegal because the government did not allow them. But they fought so hard until they got the multipartism that we are riding on today. I have a feeling that the multipartism is now being killed because the biggest opposition are being invited to join government. So we have a mongrel, the way Ruto calls it, a mongrel in form of a government. You don't know the government and the opposition because they are now bedfellows. People must rise up because it is the only thing that works. People have always fought for their rights because freedom does not come freely. It is not given freely by the oppressors. People have to rise up. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to say that we do not need kuzewa woga. Let people not scare us. People are scared so much that what happened in Nepal might befall them. So what do? They are scared, and therefore they want to share with us that their fear, so that people can sit back and watch. So when you tell us that Nepalese, Gen Zs will regret, so did you want them to stay there, tolerate this corruption, and for how long? When people whom we pay with our taxes are looting down government institutions, what do you want people to do? To sit there, to sit pretty, and watch the country go down? These things are triggered naturally. It is upon the sitting governments, the regimes, to ensure that they do the right thing before they come back to tell us that we have one nation. Let them do the right thing, knowing very well that when it explodes, both of us will suffer. I don't know what to think, but that is my take.